to do. Today's sponsors are Helene Korn, in memory of her brother, Yisrael Yaakov ben Moshe Gershon. Thank you. Tanya Addis, in honor of the Yortzeit of her mother, Masha Basa ben Abraham HaKohen. And myself, in honor of my dad's Yortzeit. My dad was Zechariah ben Yosef. Thank you all. As you all know by name, our teacher for this series is David Cheslow. David comes to us from Edison, New Jersey, which I'm sure makes sense to some of you. And he was educated at Rabbi Tice's yeshiva, at which place his 6 children were educated, and now his grandchildren are educated. That's great.
Interesting.
That's wonderful. David has done Daf Yomi, is on his 6th time, so he knows his material. Been teaching classes for 6 years. There's a lot of 6s in there. Teaching women, men, couples, and using his own technique. So today it's my pleasure. David.
Can everybody please silence their phones?
Yes, I will.
Or just...
Thank you, Ellen. First of all, thank you to the Sisterhood for producing the audience. Now up to me to produce the product, right? So we'll see what happens next week if everybody comes back. You've done your job, now I've got to do my job. So, Brucho Tava'o, welcome everyone. And to quote one of my heroes, Rabbi Adam Steinsaltz, who passed away recently, but he is a 20th, 21st century commentator on the Talmud. The text that we're going to be using is English translation of his commentary. It's called the Koren, and I really didn't know whether we would have sponsors or not. So when I did this last year, the year before that in Boca Raton, I had people sponsoring in advance, so we were able to buy everybody a Gemara, so everybody had a book to take home. This time we didn't know what was going to happen, so I got special permission from them to reprint what we're going to be doing. So, because everything is copyrighted, but you should know that what we're doing is totally on the up and up. And he said that the Jewish people have always been keenly aware that their continued survival and development depend on the study of the Talmud. So what we're doing here is we're not going to the dusty texts of the ancient Hebrews. This is alive. We're all part of the process. And very possibly one of us is going to come up with an insight that no one else thought of before, and that becomes part of the living Talmud. So what we're doing has some importance, and the fact that this group is women, that's a big deal, because most places don't have the opportunity for women to have this type of a group, and they miss out. So if you've had some background in it, you're going to be comfortable. If you haven't had any background in it, you're going to be comfortable as well. So before we actually get into the material, I've asked Ellen and Deborah to do a little bit of a role play, to act out what the situation is, because the Gemara that I chose is one that has application today. It's something that we can all encounter in our daily lives, and it's not something that we do a lot of study about the sacrifices that are brought in the temple and the service that the Kohanim did and so on. And those things are, hopefully one day we'll get to see that in real life, but it's more or less something that we're studying on the prospect, on the hope. But what we're doing today is real life. It's real law, which can affect all of us. So Ellen and Deborah, come on up and let's just act out what it is that what we're going to be talking about today.
Deborah says that she ordered something on Amazon. She wasn't going to be home. She had it delivered to my house. I know my house. I don't have her package. So I don't know what she's talking about.
But they said they delivered it to your house. I even tracked it, and where's my package?
I don't have it. I don't know anything about it. I wasn't home on Tuesday.
Well, does that somebody else have access to your home? Do you have anybody else living in your home that may have taken it, or a neighbor?
Well, nobody's home, but if they left it at the door, then anybody who's in my complex or got a pass at the gate could have seen it and taken it.
Well, what am I supposed to do? My daughter is coming in from Israel. She's ordered a lot of packages from that. She's going to be very disappointed that this package is in there. So.
Well, tell them it didn't come. They didn't deliver it.
Okay, so thank you, Deborah. So now, in a little while, I'm going to deputize you to be the court. The court has to decide, because here we have two nice people, they're both honest people, and we have to figure out a way to resolve this situation that they have. So, what are we here for? What is the Gemara after all? The Torah Sheba'al Peh, right, and Torah Shebiksav. There were two types of Torah that were given on Sinai, on Har Sinai. When Moshe Rabbeinu went up, he spent 40 days and 40 nights. He came down with the 10 Commandments. But he also had the written law, which we know as the Chumash, and he also had the oral law, without which we could never understand how to practice. So there are many examples of that. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact that Abraham, the patriarch, had a friend named Mamre. And Mamre gets mentioned in the Torah. That's a big deal, to have your name in the Torah. So for thousands of years, Jews and everybody, right, the Jewish world, the Christian world, everybody reads the Bible. And this man, Mamre, his name is in there. Why is that? Because Abraham was commanded by God to put a sign in his body, basically to perform a surgery on his body, which would complete the body, so to say, and would indicate that he has accepted the covenant, the treaty, the agreement between God and man. But Abraham didn't know where to do it. I mean, we all know, obviously, but he didn't know. And he couldn't figure out. He said, maybe I have to take a little piece off of my ear, maybe. He didn't know what to do. And his friend Mamre came up with the idea, and then Abraham went back and he asked God, is that right? And God acceded to what Mamre said. So here you have a situation where we say that there's a bris milah, right? The covenant of the circumcision, but the Torah doesn't tell us where to do it. And there are many more examples like that in terms of eating meat and milk together, right? What is the basis of that? The Torah says you should not cook, right? The meat with the milk of its mother, right? So from this we understand, and it was handed down from father to son, teacher to student, through the generations, orally. And so we understand what that means and all the complexity of all that. But it was not written down originally. Over time, the need became apparent, because through persecutions, wars, exiles, and so on, the Jewish people were beginning to lose that oral tradition. And so there was a need to put it in writing. So this is something that was, there is a tradition that started from Moses, and then he passed down to the elders, and then so on and so forth through the men of the Great Assembly, Anshe Knesset Agdola. They were 3 or 4 centuries after. They put together basically the order of our prayer and a lot of other things too. And then when it came to the actual law, the Talmud, which we're going to be working on today, so Rabbi Akiva realized that it had to start to be written down. So he began taking notes, just like we can take notes on what's going on. He began writing down, and he traveled around the country of Israel, because there were academies all over, and he wrote down the discussions and the rules that were being laid down. And then his student, Rabbi Meir, put it into an order, and then his student, who we know as Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, or we call him Rebbe, he actually put it into the form we have today, divided it into 6 sections, which we call Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah, and it was sealed. The Mishnah is complete. Now the Mishnah itself is written in Hebrew. The Gemara, which we're going to be dealing with primarily, is in Aramaic. And there's a reason for that, because the Mishnah was written in Israel itself. And I like to look at what was happening in the world, and Mindel's always reminding me about that, because she and I learned together, by the way, and we always did sort of on an informal way. Then when COVID happened, and there was no way for me to get together with the group for Daf Yomi, she said, well, I'll do it with you. And so we've been doing it every morning, we learn together. But she wants to know, what was the context? What was happening in the world? Because when you begin to see the personalities, you see certain people have certain attitudes, and you begin to see that in the Talmud, because they're human. And so the time in the Mishnah was a time that it was Roman dominion over Israel, basically a stable situation. It was written in Hebrew. And Rabbi Teitz, he should rest in peace, used to say that the Mishnah was like a telegram. You guys all remember telegrams? Right? My bar mitzvah, the relatives that couldn't come, they sent a telegram and they read it out. But telegram, you paid per word, right? So it had to be very brief and to the point. And then after that came the Gemara. So the Mishnah was written between around 30 before the Common Era to around 200 or so into the Common Era. And then the next 300 years or so the people who wrote the Mishnah, they're called Tanaim, and those who wrote the Gemara are called Amoraim. And they were active between like 200 and 500 or so. And then you have a period of commentaries. And we're gonna show you what the standard page looks like in the Gemara, because the Gemara originally, as we said, was only oral, but eventually it got printed. And the first printing of the Gemara was done in the 16th century by a non-Jewish family named Bamberg, by license from the Pope.
Interesting.
And this Bamberg, even though not Jewish, they put together the system that we're going to look at. This is a standard. They call this the Vilna Shas, which was printed in Vilna. And the way that it's done is that the first part of it is going to be the Mishnah. So the Mishnah, what you have, by the way, you have this in your folders. I gave you 2 different versions. One with the little clip on it, that's the Koran one, the more modern one, and then you have all Hebrew. So if you're comfortable with that, you can use the Hebrew version. If you want to have more of the English, you have the English. But you have in your folder just what I'm showing you. So the first part is the Mishnah. Right? And you can see the Mishnah is pretty concise, right? Then starts the Gemara. The Gemara is going all the way here into the next page and further on, which is going to be more or less an explanation and expansion on the Mishnah. In other words, the Mishnah sets down certain principles, certain rules, and the Gemara wants to know, how do they know? That's the biggest question that you're going to encounter in all your studies, if you continue studying Gemara, is Menah Hani Mile. How do they know? And it's called Menah Hani Mile. From where do they get these words? In other words, how, and by the way, Hindi, I want to thank you for asking the first question, because that's a big part of this group. This is, don't be afraid. If you have something that doesn't make sense to you, something on your mind, we'll all benefit. So thank you, Hindi. So the Jewish way is not blind faith. Our way is not just somebody told me and therefore, the rabbi or this one. No, it's up to us. It's our job, really, to satisfy ourselves, to understand why something happened. So I'm just going to read to you the basics, how the situation that we just encountered with Ellen and with Deborah. So the Torah, don't forget, that's our original source. And one of the things that I like to do is, even though you've got a very good translation there, very good commentary in English, I like, if we can, to go more to primary sources. Rabbi Steinsaltz was a very smart man, but I don't want to think for me. I want to think for me, right? So I want to look at, so we've got the Mishnah, we got the Gemara. I'm going to talk in a second about some of the other commentaries, but just to give you the scriptural source. Where does this all come from, this idea? This didn't just pop into somebody's head, right? So this is in Parshas Mishpat, and this is in Sefer Shmos, in the second book of the Torah. We're in the 22nd chapter, and it starts out that when, it says right here, when Deborah told Ellen to watch her Amazon delivery. That's not actually what it says. It says, "V'chi ki yitain ish el reyehu kesef o kelin lishmor." If a person gives to his fellow or her friend money, cash, or certain implements, instruments, vessels to guard them, to watch them. And what happened? V'guna mibeis ish, and it was stolen from the person who, right? So here you have it. You know, it's missing. It's not here. Im yimatzei aganav yishalem shnayim. If the thief is found, right? This is an important principle too, because you know when in our popular society, if somebody harms someone, they always say they want them to make restitution. You know, but restitution doesn't really punish the criminal, does it? Right? I mean, if I stole $1,000 from Nancy, right, and I got caught, and now Debbie says, okay, pay her back. So if I give her $1,000, was I punished? No, not really, because all I did is I gave her back what I took from her. So yeah, I made restitution. So our popular culture might think that's pretty good, but the Torah says no, that doesn't work. So what happens if the thief is caught? Yishalem shnayim, he has to pay double. So he's paying back what was stolen, plus he's being fined another level, right? And now it comes to our case. Im lo yimatzei aganav, let's say the thief is not found. So now what do? Nikra balabayas el Elohim, and when this word Elohim means judges here, because judges are ruling in the place of God, really. So the person whose property it was comes to the court, and the watcher, so the word that they use is bailman, bailey, whatever. So he has to swear im lo shalach yadav b'melachas, that he has to swear he did not extend his hand into the property of his friend, right? So if I'm supposed to be watching something for someone else, I have to swear that I didn't take it for myself, okay? And if I didn't take it for myself, in that case, then what happens is that I'm exempt, because I am an unpaid watcher. I'm giving you a lot of stuff right now, but the idea is that if I'm asked to watch something for somebody, so the level of supervision that I have to give is going to vary by what our relationship is, right? So what does that mean? So if Barbara wants to borrow Helene's lawnmower, right? So now she's a borrower. Who gets the benefit of this in this transaction? Barbara. Therefore, her level of responsibility to return that lawnmower is much higher than if Helene said to Barbara, watch my lawnmower for a few days and not pay her, right? Which is our case. So there are four levels of watchers, and I'll just quickly jot them down here. This thing is still not here. There we go.
No, you
I broke apart. So we'll have to work without that today. There's what they call a shomer chinam. Chinam means free, without being paid. there's a shomer sachar. So I have a house watcher, right? I'm gonna go away for the season, and I have somebody coming in to make sure my air conditioning is running, right? So I pay a house watcher. So that house watcher is a shomer sachar. They're being paid to do it, right? My car is leased. So on my car, I am a socher, I'm a renter, right? Right. So if I have an apartment, which we're cleaning out right now in Boca Raton to sell it, we had a tenant in there. She was a renter. So now if there's damage to the sheetrock on the walls, she's got to pay because she's responsible to return it to us in the same condition that she got it. So you have a shomer chinam. You have a shomer sachar, means the person's paid to watch. You have a socher, which is a renter, and then you have a shoel. Shoel is a borrower. And each one of them has different levels. So the case we're talking about today is a shomer chinam, right? So no money changed hands here. It was basically a favor, one friend doing for another. And it didn't work out, right? Yes, Linda?
In this situation though, they dropped it off in her house, but I got the impression that she didn't know it was gonna be dropped off in her house.
Right, that's so
She
we,
didn't agree to it.
right, so well we added in a little wrinkle because this is something that we all can relate to, right? Because today Amazon just delivers and they leave it in the front door. But Deborah knew it had been delivered because she got the email, probably had a picture with the email showing it right in front of Ellen's door. So Deborah knows it was delivered. And it was an expensive item, so Amazon's not going to just replace it. They want to know for sure that it wasn't delivered, and they can see that it was. So what you're saying, Linda, that's right. We added another wrinkle to it.
Yeah, right, how responsible could she be if she didn't even know she's supposed to get it to begin with?
Well, she knew. They had arranged it in advance.
Beforehand that they
Yeah.
would-
Said
So-
that she didn't know when it was gonna be delivered, she still had things to do.
She never took possession of it.
Well, that's a question too. Is the fact that it's by her front door, does that mean that she now is, we once had a porch pirate,
Yeah. See
So,
what the ring says.
what?
See what the ring says.
Right. So, no, Mingo put a note on the door. I saw you and I know you and don't you
That was our newspaper.
Oh.
Yeah,
Right.
he stopped doing it.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So, yes,
Doesn't
Diane.
the level of responsibility also have to be looked at in terms of what's going on in the world right now, where we all know that Amazon drops off packages, and we all know that people follow Amazon cars and pick up the packages. So, I mean, we have this in the 5 towns, we have a very big problem where there's a lot of people running around picking up packages.
Right.
So if I say to my friend, I want the package sent to you, and the person's not home,
Right.
I can't even attempt to assume that that person's responsible.
Exactly right. So, again, the idea of it is we just want to bring out how this sort of situation can apply in our own life in the year 2023. That this is not, as I said, these are not ancient ideas. This is something that applies right now. And so then we have to think about it, right? Because you're gonna be a court. You have to come up with some kind of solution. So the simple solution the Torah says is that Ellen swears I didn't touch it, and I was careful in the sense I was not negligent. I get deliveries there all the time, and I have no reason to think that this would be stolen in front of my house. And you knew that it was going to be delivered to my house because you knew I might not be home. So you don't consider that to be negligence on your part. And all she has to do is she has to be willing to swear that she didn't take it for herself. Okay? And if she's willing to do that, then she is off the hook in terms of the
That's a
theft.
pretty big deal.
That's a pretty big deal.
Luckily, Amazon will replace it for nothing, so it's okay.
Well, it depends on what it is, right? It depends on what it is. So let's get into it a little bit, and then I'll go back to the background later because there's a lot to it, but I don't know if this is going to work. So we're going to start with the Mishnah, and if you're using the Hebrew one, it looks just like this. If you're using the Koren, it's the beginning part of it. Yeah, go to the page, right there. Oh, there you go. Okay, so the Mishnah says, "Amak kedei sachaveru v'hema okelu." Everybody's got it? What do you have on your board? It's right in the middle of the page. It's page 289. If you use the old Hebrew one, it's right in the middle of the page.
Yeah, so I have the Mishnah here. Okay, so that's what's written. It's 189. I mean, it's just.
What's written above the Mishnah is at the end of each chapter, they make a statement which says, "Hadran Allah Elam Mitzios," that we will return to you. This is when we study this. It's not the idea we're going to do it one time and never look at it again. We're saying we completed this section, we're going to come back. So the chapter that we're doing is the third chapter in this volume. We're starting with the third. Could have started with anyone. I just chose this one because I think this is the first one that I did when I was like in the 5th or 6th grade. And
It says
I thought it
DOF
was good.
33 on the
What?
day. It says DOF 33 on
DOF
the day.
33, right, we're on
Yeah.
page 33A, right? A, right, there's A
I
and
have
B,
it.
you're on A, right, is it 33B?
I have B here.
B, 33B, okay. It's the first page in your hand.
It's just your first page. Yeah.
First page, right,
That's it, first page.
okay. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
All right, so it says, "Hamafkin Eitza Chaver Behema Okelim." So pay attention to every word because every word means something. Remember, the Mishnah is a telegram, right? So I'm just going to give you a little hint here because it says Behema Okelim. What's a behema? A behema is a domesticated animal, right? A cow, a sheep, a horse, right? Or Okelim. Kalim are vessels. So it could be Ellen's Cuisinart, whatever it was, right? So if somebody entrusts their friend with their animal or certain vessels or implements or whatever it is, and what happened? They were stolen or they were lost, right? Ellen says, I don't have it. I know it was delivered. I don't doubt you, but I don't have it. Which means either, we had an unusual wind and it blew away, or somebody stole it. It was lost or it was stolen. So now, what's the remedy for Ellen? She has to come and swear. But Ellen says, I don't like this. I don't want to swear. A lot of people do not like to swear. Not because they are not honest people, but they just don't want to swear. Because swearing, taking the name of God, is an oath. It's a serious thing. So if she says, I don't want to swear, so now she paid, right? So the item, let's say, was worth $150. So Ellen says, look, I know it was delivered, it got lost, it got stolen. I'll just have to pay you for it because I'm not going to swear. Not going to swear. So it says, she labeled a ratzali shav. So she swore, she paid because she's not going to swear. So now because Shehare Amru, because they say, Shomer Chinam Nishba V'yotze, an unpaid watcher, right? Not like my house watcher, right? So, but somebody who's not being paid to guard someone else's property can take an oath, and then they're out. They're off the hook. But there's a benefit. What's the benefit? What do you think is the benefit of now Ellen having sworn and having paid for the item? Well, now who's the owner?
If it shows up as hers.
Yeah.
Who's the owner now? Ellen's the owner. So let's say we catch the thief. What happens?
Yes.
Remember, the item was worth 150, but how much is the thief gonna have to pay?
300.
Who gets the 300?
This,
Okay.
I don't get
So the person,
Yeah, Deborah's upset now.
I want to give it
So let's see what the Mishnah says.
And the item.
My neighbor across the street said, "Oh, I sold it outside, I wanted it to be safe, here it is."
Oh, okay, so, right, so if this is the case, and by the way, it could happen that it's gonna be a court proceeding, people are gonna hear about it, and the neighbor across the street is gonna say, hey, nobody stole it, I took it in because the weather was bad, whatever it was, I was afraid there was gonna be a porch fire coming on, I took it. So now we go back to, yeah. But let's say that's not what took place. Let's say somebody did steal it, and so now Nimsa Haganov, the thief was found, the thief was caught. Mishalim Tashlume Kefel, so the thief has to pay double, right? Kefel means double.
Kefil means double?
Kefil means double, okay? That's in the case of an inanimate object. Tavach u'machar, if he slaughtered it and sold it, that means if the item that was entrusted was not the Cuisinart, but it was Deborah's sheep that she gave to Ellen to watch, and the thief who stole that sheep, slaughtered it and sold it, they have to pay a higher amount. For if you steal a sheep or a cow and you slaughter that animal and you sell it, the penalty is much higher. You pay 4 or 5 times the value, not 1 time. Okay, and we're going to learn why. But so now, if it was slaughtered and sold, Mishalim Tashlume Arba V'Chamisha, he pays 4 or 5 times. Now comes our question: Lemi Mishalim, to whom do we pay? Right? But we all know because we figured it out. Lemi Shapi Kadon Etzlo, to the person who has the item. In other words, who owns it right now? Ellen does, right? So Ellen would get it, right? Nishva v'lo rotze l'shalem. So again, she swore, did not want to pay. Nimsa Haganav, Mishalem Tashlumi Kefel, same story. So all these cases that if the person swears, now she takes ownership of it, she gets whatever comes from it. So the bottom line is, if it was stolen and the person who was watching it swears, I didn't take it, she's more willing to pay than to have to take the oath. She becomes the owner now. So if the thief is caught, she gets, whether it's an inanimate object, she gets the double. If it's an animal that was slaughtered and sold, she gets the 4 or 5 times. Okay, and the Mishnah ends up Levi Mishalim Lebal Epikodim, to the owner of the item.
Next question. I understand the animal, but let's say it's a cleat, let's say it's a pot.
Okay,
It's a ceramic pot.
right.
And the person who stole it used it and cooked treifas in it.
Right.
And now it can't be returned. Would you still have that 4 or 5 time?
No, that's only if it's an animal.
But I
So
understand
the-
the animal because you cannot send it back. But in this case,
Well, so in the case of the pot, so they ruined the pot basically. I don't want the pot that they cook their Chinese food in. I don't want that.
right,
So they have to pay the value and double the value.
okay.
Why does it say 4 or 5 times? Why can't it just say 4 times 4?
Oh, because it's 4 times for a sheep and 5 times for a cow. And why are you going to tell me a lower amount for a sheep than for a cow? Because the thief can carry the sheep. So if it's chicken, it's a regular. It's just a normal.
Oh, really? Okay.
What is 15 it's double?
Chicken is just double. Right. The 4 and the 5 is only for a sheep or a goat or a cow. So ovines and bovines. Okay. So let's start with the Gemara. And so the Gemara is the next paragraph. So the Gemara is going to ask a good question. Oh, we're almost out of time. So, if you remember when we first started, I said to you, pay attention to every word, right? Because it says behema o kalim, which indicates there's a difference, right? Otherwise, you can only say one. So the Gemara says, lama leila misne behema, lama leila misne kalim. Why? Wouldn't it be good enough just to say that somebody entrusted his friend with an item? Why must it specify either it's Sandy's pot or it's Ellen's cow or whatever it is? So why do we have to differentiate? Oh, so the Gemara says tzrichi. But we need it. We needed both. We needed the Mishnah to tell us both. Why? The Itana Behema, because if all it said was an animal, right? So all it was somebody's sheep, right? It was Deborah's sheep. And would we understand from that Sandy's pot would be in the same category? The Gemara is telling us no. They're going to tell us why not. So if it only said behema, only said the animal, hava amina, I would think behema hu demakni lekfela. If somebody steals an animal, he pays double. Why? Because it's a lot of bother to take care of an animal. And therefore, the thief would have to pay double for that animal. Because the person who's watching it has a lot of trouble, right? Because don't forget, Ellen paid now by swearing. She had a lot of aggravation to deal with that, taking care of her sheep. So, in the case of an animal, I'd say pay the double payment should be made. But Aval Kalim, the low nafish chachayu, how much trouble is it to take care of Sandy's pot? I mean, the person used it, but basically, if Sandy's given a pot to watch, you know, or it's Sandy's pot which she gave to Ruth to watch, Ruth doesn't really have a lot of trouble watching that pot. She just puts it in the cabinet and it stays there, right? So therefore, I would say Kalim delo nafish chachayu. It's not a lot of trouble for Ruth to hear that pot. In that case, Emelo makni lekfela. I would say there is no double payment because how much effort did she expend, right? So that's why it's got to give us both. So that's why we don't understand the fact that someone who steals kalim pays double from the situation with an animal. Because with an animal, we know it's a lot of trouble. But we do know that if you stole Sandy's pot, you have to pay double. So how would we understand that? We would not understand that from just the fact that if it was Ellen's sheep that was stolen. So, okay, so now suppose, all right, so let's just say kalim. Let's just say, you know, inanimate objects. And from that you might understand that animals are in the same category, right? If you don't understand the inanimate from the animate, maybe you can understand the animate from the inanimate, right? Because the Mishnah is going to go back and forth. It's going to explore every possibility. And that's important too, because a lot of times we're going to run into situations where people are going to give an opinion that we know is not accepted. So why do we bother? We're going to spend a lot of time dealing with situations and opinions that are not accepted. And the question is, why does the Gemara do all that? And there's a very good reason for it. Because this was written, don't forget, 2,000 years ago. And who's to say that somebody might come along on October 29th, 2023 and say, hey, why not this? And they said, well, the rabbis did examine that. And this is why they didn't accept that reason. So that's all going to be examined and discussed, and there will be rulings made. So, okay, so we know that from an animate object we don't understand inanimate. So now can we learn the animate from the inanimate? So it says, Itana Kalim, if the Mishnah only said Kalim, didn't say Behema or Kalim, just said Kalim, Hava Amina, I would have thought that Kalim who the Makni like Fela Mishum Dolonafish Giflayu. So for Kalim, how much is Sandy's pot worth? You know, we just had frying pans sent out to Palo Alto because we're going to our kids. So 2 weeks from now, by the way, we're going to be in Palo Alto cooking latkes for our children. So they didn't have this right size frying pan, so Mindel ordered frying pan from Amazon, by the way. So how much were the frying pans?
$39 each.
$39. So for $39, what's the big deal? So, okay, if somebody stole a $39 item, so it's not a big deal to expect them to pay double. But Ellen's sheep, how much is your sheep worth, Ellen? It could be $1,000. I don't know how much a sheep costs, but if you go into Roma, you buy a lamb chops are like $25 an hour.
Oh, yeah, they're not 25, they're a lot more.
Right. So a sheep is worth a lot of money. Her frying pan for $37. Okay. So the Mishnah says that Kalim Hudim and Maknik like Kalim Mishim Dul enough fish can fly. It's not a lot of money, right? So now Ellen's sheep, which is worth $1,000, and the thief, what did they do with it? They slaughtered it and they sold it. Now they're going to pay how much? $4,000. Right, that's a lot more than $74 for the frying pan. Right? So you would not understand the sheep from the pan. Right? Because there's a reason, you could say there's a reason why for the pan you pay double, because what is it? It's not such a big deal. But to expect them to pay 4 times, that's a much more difficult task for them to do. Therefore, so we can't understand vessels from animals, we can't understand animals from vessels. That's why the Mishnah says, so the Mishnah again, they're not just putting in extra words to entertain us. The words are there for a reason. So,
Look, questions.
sorry. Luba.
But it seems that it might become sort of limitless because now we have 2 categories, right? But I think, unless I misunderstood it, when you mentioned animals, you also delineated between, the cow, the sheep,
Right.
worth different prices, but then you have other animals that might not be milk producers or what have you.
Right, that's right.
So at which point, and obviously there is a limit to how much we see in the text. So are there other additions to it, or we extrapolate from this based on this, like a cat, a dog, a canary bird?
Right.
Where do we stop?
So it would seem that a cat, a dog, a canary bird, or that chicken is more or less just paying double. It's not in the same category of the large animal, the sheep, the goat,
And
or
who
the
would
cow.
determine that? Like, how is that determined? Is just the tradition, or?
So right. So it's the only ones that are exceptions to the rule are the ones that are mentioned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says behema, which includes the sheep and the goat, and later on it's going to tell us how much for each and why. But only the sheep, ovines, sheep, goats, and bovines are included in the 4 and 5.
And the other animals are vessels.
Other animals are basically, in the case of the situation. Yes.
So let's
Ellen.
say the family that owns a cow has a baby, and the baby depends on milk from this cow.
Right.
And then somebody steals a cow. So it's you're not only dealing with the cow and the loss of the cow, you're dealing with the baby who doesn't have any milk. Is that a situation that is equated into this issue?
Well, what do you think?
Yes, I think it should be.
How would
I
you
don't know.
determine that? I mean,
How would you determine that?
we might have a cow, but we don't have a baby.
Right.
And we actually have a 5-week-old granddaughter,
Yeah.
but she doesn't drink cow's milk.
Right. Well, in those days, yeah.
Right. So.
Well, what if it was like a 11-month-old baby?
Well, it's hard to make a rule.
Right. That doesn't apply.
We're making rules that can apply to everybody.
Right.
Yes, Cindy.
This is under the assumption that the Ghana is caught. What if he's not caught? Or he doesn't have the money to pay?
Oh, now we're going to get into another situation. So what happens? What happens if I owe Patrice $50,000 and I don't have it? Right? What happens? So we work something out. Either I pay her an installment, we sell some asset, we borrow the money, or in the worst case, I become her slave for a period of time until I work off that. What? The earring, right? The earring. So you do know a little bit about this stuff. The earring, the standard situation of it's called Eved Ivri, Jewish slave, which by the way, it's called a slave, but if you have only one pillow in the house, who gets the pillow? Right. So it's not so clear, but one of the maybe it's a benefit, maybe not, of being a Jewish slave is that the master can give you his Canaanite maidservant to live with you, right, and produce more slaves for him, right? So what happens if at the end of a period of time, and the standard length of time is a maximum of 6 years. It could be less than that, because $50,000, I can make that in a few months. I don't need 6 years to earn the $50,000. So my period of indenture, my period of slavery would end. But let's say it was a large amount of money. At the end of 6 years, the slave says, I like the situation here. I like this woman you gave me. I like the children. I want to stay, right? So what Patrice is talking about with the earring is that they go into court and they make this statement, and then the slave has his ear pierced, actually on the upper part of the ear, and he remains a slave. The Gemara says la'olam, which really means till the Yovel, till the Jubilee. So every 50 years we have a Jubilee, and he goes free at that point. So that's very, very short discussion about the Hebrew slave. But guess what? Our time is up, and we're going to have to continue next time.